Hey guys, welcome back. So now we are jumping back into the 2021 Darkhold miniseries, which picks up from Darkhold Alpha, but with going forward, issues 2 through 6, they give us a way more zoomed in telling of what the interpretation of the stories these heroes read in the Darkhold had ended up looking like. And this approach is brilliant, because these next 5 one-shots, they're just gonna dive into the craziest of stories, to where with the first one, we start with Iron Man. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so jumping in, one of the things that I really like about this series already is the way that it takes the existing concept of people who read the Darkhold and lose their mind from whether trying to copy over the Darkhold or reproduce a spell, augment a spell, or even just read a story from it. And for the most part, it would just show us a perspective of like the outside looking in. Because with the way that it was shown before, we would more or less just kind of see someone go crazy or see something come out the book, or they would undergo some transformation or whatever. But in this case, within this 2021 Darkhold miniseries, it's done in a way that I don't believe that we ever seen before. Because within this anthology series, we are dropped right down into the madness, and within each issue we're shown what the reader sees and what story manifested as they lost their mind. And if you ask me, this is a brilliant idea and we need a lot more of it. But jumping in with this one, we start off with Tony Stark, and in his story, it's actually narrated by Pepper Potts. And for her, very early in the beginning, she sets the stage with talking about how she was in love with her boss, but even still, she puts it out there early on that this is the story of how she died. And with how this story starts off, it begins with the moment that this Tony Stark had just came back in his first version of the Iron Man suit, just crashing into Stark Industries. And with him first getting there in this suit, of course, having an early version of the miniature arc reactor, with his last bit of strength, he plugs up the suit to charge, and that's how Pepper initially finds him. And with her just looking into his eyes through the helmet, right away she knows it's Tony and that he's in bad shape. And with Pepper and Happy seeing that this is Tony, right away they rush to get this armor off of him, but of course he was like, the chest piece stays, cause it's kinda keeping him alive right now. But as soon as he's charged up, he then just jumps back up and gets back to work in order to make improvements on his suit so that it'll be more than just armor or more than just a weapon. And with seeing him do this, Pepper, she then says the sensible thing, and she tells him like, you probably should go to a doctor because of his trauma and because of the injuries, because they would be more suited to take care of him rather than just him because he's an engineer. And really that's the most logical thing to do. But if Tony had just said okay here, then it would be like, okay, roll credits. The end. That would have been the end of the story. But when Tony responds and he tells Pepper how qualifications aren't always the best answer, and he brings up Jarvis as an example with saying how he hired a boxer to be his chauffeur, which really in hindsight that was a good decision, but that's the exception, not the rule. But more or less Tony lets them know that he had built this thing in a cave with a bunch of scraps. And now that he's back at Stark Industries, he wants to see what he can really do with this idea. And like in the case of Pepper, against her better judgment, she sticks around and she helps Tony, and even after him suggesting that everyone could just go home and take the weekend off. And with this happening, it really just leaves it down to Pepper, Jarvis, and Happy sticking around. And really it's during this time here where Tony's working on the suit and he's making his modifications and his initial updates, and Pepper's just trying to keep up as far as like the biomedical technology and machine learning, because that's not just stuff that anyone can just learn overnight. But with her sticking around and getting tossed into the company's deep classified work in robotics, there's still a good amount that she's able to pick up and lend Tony a hand throughout this process. But when this happens, there's then a moment where Tony approaches her and he removes his helmet, and right away Pepper sees that a significant amount of the scarring and bruises that were on his face, they're gone. And with showing this to her, Tony lets her know that he's practically figured out a way at this point to make this suit like a mobile hospital, to where semi-autonomous computational machinery is capable of finding his injuries and just knitting him back together. And at this point, even to the extent to where the suit can probe through his body and repair his organs. And to go further and show Pepper more of an example of what the suit can do, he then tells her about how in his left hand he had like 3 metacarpal fractures, but after placing on the glove, it's all fixed. And he asks her like if she wants to see it, and in response, of course, she's like, yeah. But when he takes off the glove to show her how his hand is healed, they then come to find out that the glove had taken the majority of his skin and tissue, which wasn't quite exactly the plan. But with them seeing this, they then have to rush to put the glove back on, and as soon as they do, the suit then reacts, the anesthesics kick in, and shortly after, Tony no longer feels the pain. But even with him feeling better at this point, like Pepper, Happy, and Jarvis are just looking at him like, this is a problem, right? but instead Tony just tells him that he can fix it, there's just a few bugs he's gotta work out, and he explains to them that the suit must have calculated logically, and with doing so the suit figured that if he had iron skin it would be more protective, more durable, and more reliable. So really all he would have to do is go back in and program the suit to regenerate the skin, and after that, problem solved. And with saying this, he convinces Pepper to help him, and she agrees with it because she's in love with him, and at this point she's really just ignoring like every red flag. And if you agree, drop a red flag in the comments for Tony right here. But at this point, like for Pepper, where they're helping Tony figure this out, and she's really able to shine with helping him with the equations, which kind of got a couple of Star Wars references in there, just saying. But for Pepper, working with Tony from that night through the next day, through the next night, and just going non-stop, and it's really got her in her feels because this is the first time she spent this much time with Tony. And for her, it causes her to get more caught up in the emotional aspects of the moment rather than the logic of what could be building up here. But while they're working here, there's then this moment to where Tony opens up to Pepper and he tells her about some of the things that had went through his mind back when he was captured and in the cave, and how it came to a point to where he didn't like himself anymore. And that was mainly because he believed that there was a strong possibility that he was going to die in there, and he didn't want his obituary to read that he was just an arms manufacturer whose life was just a service of death and profit. And for him, when he came up with the idea of this suit, in a way it kind of made it worse, because also with making his escape, he also killed every man and woman who held him hostage. And while he's talking to Pepper, he just lets her know like he wants to be a hero. He wants to save the little guy when no one else would. And when he leaves this earth, he wants to be known as someone who made this world a better place. And for Tony, he truly believes that what he can make out of this suit, that it'll be the answer for that. And when Tony says these things, it kind of creates this moment to where him and Pepper get closer, but it really doesn't go further than just a kiss, because Pepper wants them to figure out how to get Tony out of this suit completely before they start getting down. And I don't blame her, because the whole time you don't want Tony just sounding like boom, 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 you know what I'm saying? Because at that point it just would have been getting real awkward. But sometime later, Pepper then realizes that it's Sunday because Jarvis, he comes in bringing breakfast, but with Jarvis bringing breakfast up, Tony then walks in wearing the whole suit, giving off the super creepy vibe, looking like Frankenstein's monster. And with seeing this right away, Pepper hits him with the Captain Picard, like, why did you put the suit back on? And in response, Tony is then like, wait, I'm wearing the suit? And right away there is like, okay, drop another red flag on the play. And he tells her like he remembers the issue as far as his hand when it stopped hurting, but then when his legs and his head started hurting, he didn't notice that in response, he started putting his helmet back on and stepping back into the legs, because to him, it only felt like he was scratching an itch. And with hearing this, when Pepper goes to check on Tony's condition within the suit, she then notices that all of Tony's skin under the suit is gone. And at this point, he can't just take the suit off, because if he did, it'd kill him. And when she says this, Tony tells her in response, why would I want to take off the suit? But with him saying this, he's joking, and he tells Pepper like, well, you know, at least I still got my sense of humor. But man, even still, like, this is the worst time to be telling a joke. And really, right now in this moment, I feel like Jarvis is the only person in the room who's in their right mind, because even with just the way that he's looking at Tony, it's like, man, what the hell are you doing, bro? But right away with Tony, he tells them like, it's still me inside this suit, and he lets Pepper and Jarvis know that it's probably better that he stays in it for right now, because it's still him on the inside, and together they can figure out a way to fix this. And as a solution, he goes back to the computer and he tells Pepper and Jarvis to go downstairs and get him the regenerative preps, which he says would be better for him to eat given the circumstance. And with saying this, Pepper's like, okay, and they go downstairs, they get the preps. It takes like 15 minutes before they come back. But as soon as they get back, Tony then initiates the isolation protocol, locking Jarvis and Pepper out of the room. And when this happens, Tony says he doesn't feel so good and he needs just a moment to collect himself. So right away, Pepper then goes to check the lab scanners to scan Tony and see what's going on in the suit. But when she does this scan, she finds that the suit has probed through his body, removed his skull completely, and within this accelerated process of correcting what's left of Tony inside, it's torn apart a majority of his physical stature, it's run wires deeper into his brain, and all she could really recognize of Tony inside the suit is just a bunch of undifferentiated meat. And when she tells all of this to Tony, he just responds like, it's fine. Like, that sounds fine to me. And immediately he just starts justifying all of it, like the iron skull is safer, it's better, it's stronger, because this entire time the semi-autonomous computational machinery, it's been weaving its way closer and closer into Tony's mind and his body, to where things like he mentioned earlier, with him not liking himself back in the cave, and him wanting to be better, and him wanting to make this suit something safer and more advanced, that this has resulted in the suit blending with Tony to the point of where he doesn't know where he ends and this suit begins. But while he's in here, he tells tells Pepper that he needs to work, but then immediately after he places the building under shutdown, he cuts the phone lines, and he opens the door for a moment to let in Happy and Jarvis. But as soon as they walk in, he closes it back, and after they're in, he then cuts on the fire suppression system, cutting off their oxygen, causing them to pass out, and he just snatches them up. And when he takes them in, it's here where we see what Tony meant when he said I need to work, because it's here where he has other versions of the suit printed out, and he just takes Happy and Jarvis and he throws them both into their own different versions of the suit. And as soon as they're getting stuffed in, their bodies are being broken down, their bones are cracking, and just moments later Happy and Jarvis then start to get up. And in the case of Pepper, to where she sees all of this because she's able to go up to Tony's penthouse and get a better look, with the way up to Tony's penthouse being open and only one monitor on and available, which right away lets her know that Tony wanted her to see this. But as she looks out the window down on the street, Tony has other suits that are outside, which are soliciting for people to step into them so that they can be cured from diseases, or if like you're walking with a cane, it'll make those corrections, because for Tony, the next step at this point is to make as many of these suits as he can in order to correct the flawed human body, which ultimately he wants to do for the entire world. But of course, as of now, he doesn't have too many of them, but with him taking in Happy and Jarvis, he now has them helping him to make more. But when Pepper sees one of these suits down on the street just calling for people to climb inside, she throws down a chair from the penthouse and it just lands right on top of this thing. And might I say, like with her making that hit, like her sight and her aim are impeccable. Like she need to unlock a trophy for that thing. Achievement unlocked. But even with her destroying this one suit, more of these suits then begin to make their way outside, and down on the ground people are fighting each other just to get inside of these suits. But then as soon as they get inside, then you hear the screaming. But that screaming is then soon turned to silence one by one after each accelerated process is complete. And as soon as each one completes, one by one they then just go into silence. But while Pepper's up here, it isn't long before Tony makes his way up to the penthouse. And as soon as Pepper hears sounding footsteps coming up behind her, she knows that it's Tony, and in a moment of just complete terror, she knows this thing's about to be over. And it's almost like, man, what's worse? Like what you know is about to happen, or the terror leading up to that point? But soon after, we then see that Tony takes Pepper down to the lab, to where we find out that he has a suit specially made for her. And it's with seeing this concludes like the interpretation of the story that Tony had read. And man, was this good. Like I really enjoyed it. And at this point, I can't wait to see everybody else go out of their mind. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.